Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So I will start with a short prayer. And this prayer I do wherever I go. It doesn't matter if I'm talking in a gathering like today, or if I am in a temple, or in a church, or in a school, it doesn't matter where. It is basically one prayer in which I remember my masters, and the masters of my masters. Because one very important thing for us in Buddhism is gratitude. And if there is anything I can share with you today, it's because someone has taught me. So based on that, I just remember my teachers and the teachers of my teachers. Okay? The first part of the prayer is in Tibetan, the second part of the prayer is in Sanskrit. And then there are maybe some people who also may know this prayer, can also follow me if you may want. Ocho sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarnoda peke drolor sampe ze parchen valde lame shabla solate Omo guru vajradara sumatimo nishasane karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsamanya Sarva Siddhi Pakyuke Kudan Dagilu Pakyuke Sundan Dagima Pakyuke Tudan Dagi Yenyerme Chikto Jingi Makyuke kudan dagilu, makyuke sudan dagima, makyuke tudan dagi, yenyerme chikto jingilo. For me, today it's a great pleasure to be here together with all of you. And I think the main reason is because it's an honor to be able to share what we learn, what we know, what we think we understand with people with open mind and open heart. So it makes our own life more meaningful. So I'm very grateful to all of you of being here today, of coming to listen some words. And especially because, as I said, I think one of the things that makes my own life more meaningful is having the opportunity to share something that I believe is very precious for me, that was the opportunity of learning with great masters. As some of my great masters would say, I have no qualities, but I had great masters. So, all of us, it doesn't matter where we come from, it doesn't matter what is our culture, what is our religion. I myself, I come from some sort of a mixture, because my father's family is Jewish, my mom's family is Christian, Protestant, Presbyterian. And was born in Brazil, where we have already a mixture of many cultures somehow together. Then I grew up from when I was 12 to when I was 24 in India in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery. Then traveled around through Europe and Americas and so on, Asia. And I had the opportunity in all these years to meet many people and to talk to people and to see people from different cultures, different social levels, different levels of education. And being in this position of a Lama, somehow people sometimes, I think in the West people see a Lama more like a sort of a psychologist than an actual spiritual guide very often. but which means people come with their more personal questions and personal difficulties and so on, which is okay, it's fine. Anything that we can do, we do in the best way as we can. But with this, it makes the opportunity to know people in a different way. Very often when we see someone, we first see, let's say, how do you call it in English? Like in a building, you have first the out part of the building. In Portuguese, we say fachada.
The front.
The front of the building. What is inside is not always shown. And that's why also normally I say everyone seems normal until you don't know him well enough. And the point is that people normally, I meet many people that they come and they open themselves. So you go beyond the front of the house, you go inside and you start seeing the many rooms that are there and so on. And what I have seen is that it doesn't matter where I go, with whom I am, what culture, what social level, rich poor people, great levels of education, people that maybe have a very low level of education, it doesn't matter. There are some things which are very, very similar, not to say the same. I would say the same. First of all, everybody suffers. And no one wants to suffer. And everybody wants to be happy. That's the main thing. And the most amazing thing of all, for me, somehow it's quite shocking. Everybody, doesn't matter who they are, who we may be, we do everything we do thinking is the best for our own happiness. Even the most amazing things done in the world and the most terrible things that are happening in the world, why do people do what they do? Because they think it is the best for their own happiness, guided, although, by their own ignorance. And this is something that we can see everywhere. This is something that for me, it's very clear. So, and once we see this, it unites us. We see that it doesn't matter on the other side who is there. We want the same thing. We are going on the same direction. And the direction that we are going, the direction we want to go is that we want to be happy. We want to live in a state of harmony, of joy, of satisfaction. That's what actually we truly want. And we do everything we do, trying to find the right balance and trying to do the right things in order for us to reach and to be able to maintain such state. Because there are many moments during our lives that we experience joy, that we experience satisfaction. But the great question is how to keep it. So sometimes life may look more like a sort of a roller coaster, no? Going up and down and up and down and up and down, and all we want is actually satisfaction. So we may try to do it in many different ways. And most of the times, we try to find solutions in a quite superficial way. We try to find solutions, we try to find means to maintain a level of satisfaction and joy in a bit of a superficial way. Which means we do it doing things that we already know that don't work. Okay? I will go directly to the point. One time I was giving a talk. I was called to give a talk about Buddhism in a school in Italy. And I arrived in the school. Normally, whenever I go somewhere, I have no idea where it is, what public it is. I really just go wherever people ask me to go. So I arrived at this school. There were around 200 kids from 6 to 7 years old. And then I asked the teacher, how long do I need to talk? And she told me, okay, an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I said, what do I do now? And, okay, then I was invited to talk about Buddhism, make an introduction to Buddhism. Then I said, okay, let's talk about the Four Noble Truths. Okay, then I just started talking about the Four Noble Truths, changing the way. Sure, I would not talk in the normal way, how I would say, like in a normal context with adults. And I was like making questions to the children, I make some friendship. Then there was a moment during the explanation in which I needed to explain to them how desire works. So I asked the children, is there any toy that any one of you wants? And all of them said, yes. I there anything that you really like and you want? And all of them said yes. They were answering me in a group, like very nice actually. And then I asked them, did it ever happen maybe in your birthday or in Christmas that you got a toy that you wanted? And all of them said yes. Were you happy? Yes. How long did your happiness last? Long or short? They said short. Do you still have the toy? Yes, we have. Does it still make you happy as before? No. Do you want another toy? Yes. Okay. Then yes, the next toy that you get, how long is going to make you happy? Long or short? Then they looked a little bit upset and they said to me, short. Okay. Were these children special children? Because they had a special awareness of the nature of dissatisfaction of desire? No. We all know it. The problem is that we change from toy to toy since we are very small because we don't know any other game. So basically what we do is that we know that it's not going to make us truly happy. We know that it's not able to sustain our sensation of pleasure and satisfaction. But we don't know any other way around. So first we have a toy here, then as we grow up we start having more pleasures of the body, and then we want to have position, and then we try to get more money and position and power and pleasures, and then we try to satisfy all our wishes, try to maintain the sensation of happiness. No? One time this was so clear to me. I was together with a friend, and he's a person with good wealth, and he was in front of his private jet. And then we were about to enter his private jet, and he was a little bit, somehow he seemed a little bit, how do you say, he was not so comfortable to have all this wealth and somehow. So he looked to me, and he said, you know, the only difference between big and small boys is the size of their toys. To say, it's just a toy, nothing more than that. We're just again trying to be happy. But the point that I want to bring is that we try in many ways to be happy, all the time. We try by gaining material wealth and material stability. We try to be happy. We try to maintain the sensation of happiness by having pleasures from our senses. We try to maintain our sensation of pleasure by having good people around us and trying to have good relations within family and friends and all of this. Okay? But the fact is that even though we may be able to get most of it, finally there is still something missing most of the times. Okay. So comes one question for me to try to go to look for the right solution. Let's try to understand better the problem. All of us want to be happy, which means we don't want to suffer. If we look to suffering, there are mainly two types of suffering: physical suffering and mental suffering. Okay, the suffering of the body, it is like heat and cold and pain and thirst and hunger. And then we have the suffering of the mind: sadness, anxiety, worries, insatisfaction, and so on. Okay? So what do we have more? Suffering of body or suffering of mind? What do you think? Suffering of mind, right? We suffer much more for things that because we are worried and because we are unsatisfied or because we have anxiety and so on, than the actual fact of suffering, of having pain. Even when we have pain, we are more worried of having more pain after than the actual pain we are having at the right moment. So, basically, there is a very simple fact, which is, for the suffering of body, where do we need to look for a solution? In the body or in the mind? If I have a headache or if I am hungry, for example, what do I do if I am hungry?
Eat.
Is it meditation going to help? Yes, up to a certain point. It's going to help me to deal better with the hunger, but it's not going to eliminate the hunger, okay? So to finally eliminate the hunger, what do I need to do? I need to eat, okay? So body, solution, body, okay? If I have pain in my body, I met so many great masters with great states of mind, but when they were sick, they went to the doctor. Okay? So for the suffering of body, we need to look for a solution in the body. Okay? And for the suffering of mind, what do? We need to look for the solution truly in the mind. Even though that's not what most of the time happens. What happens most of the time when we feel sad, or when we feel anxiety, or when we have worries and jealousy and envy and insatisfaction and so on? We go to buy something new. Maybe we go for shopping, or we go to look a nice movie, or we want to go out with friends. We try to forget the suffering instead of solving the problem. And what happens after that? It simply comes back. Okay. So, I believe very much that in this task that we all follow, that is this process of trying to be happy and meeting a state of peace and joy and satisfaction, the most powerful tool that we have is our mind. It's the most important one. There is a saying from a great master, his name was Yunzin Yeshe Gyaltsen, some centuries ago in Tibet. And he said something like that. I was trying to remember before the verse, I'm not really sure it's correct, but it's something like that. Tibetan would be say something. Korde kyun malupa semle junga yinu she, tube sherab le sumpe, kibu loden chenamgi, simge sangde sheba cha. Which means something like that. All the all the benefits and the harms, all the positive and negative aspects of existence, everything that exists, good and bad in the world, in existence. No, it was taught to arise from the mind. So was said in the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni. Those intelligent enough should put an effort to learn the secrets of the mind. So, if we really look carefully, we are totally unable to perceive anything, to experience anything independently of ourselves. Right? Anywhere we go, anything we do, anyone we meet, the way how this reality exists for us, it always comes through the filter of our mind. So we are deeply influenced by our own perception. Okay? And it is actually something very powerful. If we change our inner way of relating to the world changes. Okay? And based on this, one of the most important things for us to do, I believe, is to learn how to take good care of our mind. The mind is not something fixed. The mind is not something like a sort of a piece of concrete. It is something that is malleable, that we can shape it as we move along our life. We already do it all the time. But it's important to know about it. It's important to understand how our mind is functioning, so that we can understand that actually we are not our life, we are not a result of the circumstances around us. But the circumstances around us, the world around us, is a result of the way how we act. Most of the times when we feel happy or when we feel sad, when things go well or bad, what do? We point the finger towards something or someone. And we live our life as if we were the simple result of what is happening around. We act as a victim. Why am I sad? Because that person did that. because that thing happened in that way, because this was not supposed to happen, but it happened, because of this, because of that. We have many reasons around us that we see as the causes of our own suffering. Okay? And we live as if we were a simple result of the world around us. But I truly believe it's not like that. Because we have a great power of influence, if we want to say like this, on the world, on the way how we experience, on reality around us all the time. Okay? So to understand this better, I believe it would be very, very important for all of us to have, during our process of education, to learn more about our own mind. Mainly because it's the most powerful tool and source that we have in our whole life. We learn how to take care of the body. Let's say we learn. We try at least. No? If we look around us in society, how much importance is given to take good care of the body? More and more. So there we are, taking care of to eat healthy food and to do exercise and so on, right? So it's good, it's important. I also believe we need to take good care of the body. Also because the body is directly connected with the mind also. We will talk about that a little bit later. But the fact is that we are aware of that. We are aware of taking good care of the material things. So we study our whole life. Not a whole life, but we study since we are small and we go to university for what? What do we learn? Knowledge. In order to do what? To make money. Because we need the material stability. Correct. Wonderful. But is it enough? No. So it's also important for us to take good care of our body. Do we need knowledge for that? Do we need to know how our body functions, what is good to eat, what is bad to eat, what is a good exercise, what is a bad exercise? We need that. But to have a good health, is it enough to have the right knowledge of how to take care of the body? No, we need to eat in the right way, we need to do the right exercise, we need to have a healthy lifestyle. Okay? But we have a very important tool in our life. And let's say the most important of all, which is our mind. And we simply do not acknowledge its existence. I'm generalizing society. Okay, I'm sure many people is different, but generally speaking, where do we talk about let's make exercises for our mind? Okay, be careful what type of food you take for your mind, what type of information you intake and what type of influences get and what type of way you influence the mind. We never talk about this, we never take care of that much. Okay, when actually it is extremely important. So, what I wanted to do today is most of all share with you some concepts of a better understanding about the mind. So we can understand our own mind a little bit better, so that we can direct it more consciously. Okay? So first of all, the mind always functions within an object of perception. The mind, even the definition of mind in Tibetan is called Salshin Rigpa, which means clear and cognitive. The mind is clear like the light, because it's always awakened. There is no moment of the mind where it's not perceiving something. Even when we are in deep sleep, the mind is still functioning. Okay, according to Buddhism, even after death, the mind still functions. Not in the body, sure, but there is a deeper level of consciousness, a more subtle type of mind that continues. Anyhow, the mind is always on. That's why it's clear. And it's cognitive because it's always perceiving something. The mind always has an object of perception. Okay. Then we have the gross mind. The gross mind is the mind that normally we call mind, in the sense that it's the mind that perceives our five senses. What we see, what we listen, what we touch, what we taste, what we smell. Plus the sense of the mind itself, which is the cognitive part. So We have the mind that perceives ideas, and the mind that is fully manifested. That's what we call the gross mind. Okay? Then we have one part of the mind which is called the subtle mind, which is actually very important. For example, I'm not angry. Okay? And looking around, I don't see anyone that seems angry. The fact that we are not angry right now, does that mean that we do not have anger? Bring me an object of anger, and we will see what happens. Okay? So if we start here playing games and trying to bring an object of anger to our neighbor, we will see what will happen, okay? So what happens is that the anger that I have, but that in this moment is not manifested, where is it? In the subtle mind. So the subtle mind is the aspects of our mind which are there but are not manifested. When the anger manifests, then it manifests in the gross mind. Okay? So everything that is working beneath, that is there but we are not fully aware of it, this is what we call the subtle mind. Positive aspects, negative aspects. Positive and negative means, negative aspects means aspects that bring suffering. Positive aspects means aspects that bring satisfaction and joy. Okay? It's not something moral, what is good or what is bad. In Tibetan we call the negative aspects of the mind, we call nyomon. Nyomon sim raptuma shivarcheva. It's any aspect of the mind that brings the mind to a state of unpeacefulness. That's a mental defilement. That's a negative aspect of the mind. If it brings the mind to a state of unpeacefulness. Okay? So this is what we call a negative aspect of the mind. Anyhow, we have negative and positive aspects of the mind, in a gross, in a subtle level. So the subtle mind is all the parts of the mind which are not fully manifested, but are there. Then we have what we call the very subtle mind. The very subtle mind is actually the imprints of our emotions, of our thoughts, of our experiences, and it's something that we call the mind that goes from life to life. It's like it's something that is even not manifested in a subtle level, but it's there, that we take wherever we may go, wherever we may be. Okay? So this is we call the three types of mind. First, the gross mind, subtle mind, and very subtle mind. Okay. There is two aspects of the mind which, there are many ways in which we can classify the mind and we can explain it, okay? I wanted to go today starting from gross, subtle, very subtle, but then most of all enter into two aspects of the mind, which for me are very important. Which in Tibetan we call kundak and hlinki. Kundak, I like to translate it as constructed. A constructed mind, a constructed aspect of the mind, and hlinki we call spontaneous, an inborn, spontaneous aspect of the mind. So we have both. We have a constructed part of our mind and we have a spontaneous part of our mind. Okay? So let's try to understand what is what and to recognize it within ourselves. The constructed part of the mind is everything that depends on the culture, on the education, on the experiences we have. So because of that, my constructed mind is very much different from yours. Okay? The problem is that very often we have many aspects of our mind which is constructed, but we think is spontaneous. We are not aware that they are constructed. So I will just make one example, which for me it's very clear. And the first time I read this example, it was not in this context, it was in a completely different context, it was talking about marketing. But when I read this, it really touched my mind. And it's talking about the pink color, pink and blue color. So if we ask people nowadays, if we ask ourselves, what's the color for boys and what's the color for girls? Between pink and blue, if you have a small boy, which color would you dress him? Pink or blue?
Blue, huh?
Blue. Right. Some people like to do things in an opposite way, so they make pink. Okay? But most of us, which color we would give for a small boy? Blue. And for a small girl? Pink, right? Why? Without philosophy, without the mind of analyzing or philosophy mind, we just say, if we directly answer why, because that's how it is. Because that blue is the color of boys and pink is the color of girls. Come on. Why to make such questions? No? It's quite obvious. It's like that. Okay? But if we really ask why, and we go to look the history of pink and blue, it starts in 1918. 1918 was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And at that time, before that time, the color for clothes, for boys and girls was white, gray, cream. Old children were dressed in cream. Like when we look old movies, what was the color of the clothes for most poor people, basically? It was this cream white color, right? To dye cloth was very expensive. So children were never dressed unless they were princes or very rich people. They were never dressed with colors. They all were dressed with this sort of cream color. Okay? So in 1918, with the Industrial Revolution, it was possible to make cloth with color to be available for people, for most of people to buy them. So people, they need to start inventing colors for people to use. So the first marketing campaign for clothes for children with colors was pink for boys, blue for girls. 1918. Why? Because they thought at the time that pink was a more strong color and blue was more soft. So the light blue was for girls and the pink was a stronger color, was for boys. And so from 1918 to 1920, it was sold, all the clothes for children were sold in this way. Everybody was buying blue for the girls and pink for the boys. Then what happened, it was in 1920, the markets of clothes for children starts to get a little bit stuck because people were not used to buy clothes every 6 months. So what happened is that we created this industry, and because of that we need to create needs in order for the industry to move on. That's what happened. And how do you make the needs and how do you make people believe their wants become needs? With marketing. So in 1920 they changed the direction and they made a whole marketing campaign in which the color for boys were blue and the color for girls was pink. They inverted it. And since 1920 we follow. So up to today, when parents go to buy clothes for their children, pink is for girls and blue is for boys. This is a constructed mind, which is constructed by influence. It is constructed by information that we receive and by emulating what other people do. Okay? How many aspects of our mind are constructed? So many. So many. Okay. One of the clear way of trying to understand what are the constructed aspects of our mind is go to live in a place where people come from a very different culture. Then we start to see how different things are. And then we really see what are the constructed aspects of our mind. So one important process that I would really like to do, until now I was not able to do, but I advise anyone that could do to make it, is to make a study, to check what are the influences of our constructed mind. Okay. I never made a real study about it, I was just reflecting a little bit upon it, and I ended up with 3 main influences that we have on our constructed mind. Because the constructed mind is a little bit our paradigm. The view of the world in which we live. Okay? And the most crazy thing is that it is fully constructed by influences and by ideas and so on, but we believe that that's how things are. And we can even discuss. We can become even violent seeing, oh look, and we can become very, how to say, with strong judgment when we see one boy dressed in pink. People may even say quite strong things and act in a strong way. Okay? But what happens is that our constructed mind, it is simply influenced by information. So I have seen three main influences of our constructed mind. Western society. Okay? Every culture is slightly different, but in our Western society mostly, we are influenced by the monotheistic religion. And the religion brings a strong point of view of what is reality, what is right, what is wrong, how things are done, and so on and so on. So we have a strong influence from the monotheistic religion. Okay. We have a strong influence from so-called scientific view. I say so-called because very often what we follow is not necessarily scientific. And most of all the influence that we have is from the mechanicist view of Newton, a materialistic view of the world. That's why for most of us, if we start learning something about quantum physics, it's so difficult to understand. Because it's in a completely different paradigm. We need to change our structure of reality. You know? I was reading some time ago, last year somewhere, about quantum computers. I like these things. So I was reading a little bit about how quantum computers work. And a quantum computer is not working with the normal binary system. A normal computer has a binary system, which means it makes all the calculations based on existence, non-existence, 1 and 0. Okay? Quantum computers use what they call qubits. A qubit, it has 4 possibilities, not 2. It has exist and don't exist at the same time, and a 4th one that I didn't understand. So, first of all, how can something exist and not exist at the same time? That's the first question. Why it's so difficult to understand very often? Because it's in a complete different paradigm. We were brought up in a paradigm of reality influenced by a very materialistic, linear reality. Okay? Where consciousness is a result of material. In the paradigm of quantum physics, is the opposite. Materia is a result of consciousness. So it's a completely different paradigm. I'm not entering into that subject now. The only thing I want to say is that we are influenced by this view. So we have an influence of a very, let's so-called solid materialistic view of reality. And then the third main influence that I see that many of us have very strongly is we have an influence from the capitalist economics in which we live. Okay. So the idea that the more something costs, the better it is. And many other values and ideas that we have accumulated in our mind. Okay? But it's so nice. It's so nice when we start to see that a view that we have is actually a constructed view. And when we see a constructed view as a constructed view, for me at least, it relaxes the mind. Because before, when we see a constructed view as not just as something solid and that's what it is, we don't open ourselves for other possibilities. And suddenly we see that we are so influenced by so many things. Okay? By what we listen, by what we see, by the education we receive. And our constructed views are not created only today, yesterday. They are slowly built up from generation to generation. So my constructed views, my constructed mind is fully influenced by the constructed views and mind of my parents and grandparents and all the ones that came before me. Because when these views are passed to me, my worldview, the paradigm in which I live, when they are passed to me, they are passed with a whole luggage, a heritage that I take. Okay? That's why somehow culturally is something so strong inside of us, culture. Because culture is the way how we see the world. Okay? I will give another example of influence of a constructed view. I think many of us grew up with a great influence of Walt Disney culture. And they lived happily forever. Okay? So you see many people that grew up, luckily I'm out of that group. At least I feel so. And but we see many people that grew up with the idea that happiness, it's where you find happiness. In the state, once you are going to meet your enchanted prince or princess, and then everything will be fine. In Brazil, you even see people saying to the children, especially to the girls, like when they get hurt, or when they have pain, or when they are sad, like when they have pain, and they come to the parents, oh, Mom, I have pain, and they are crying, and they say, and the answer is, don't worry, when you get married, it will pass.
Oh, yeah.
No?
No.
So, if we look in our culture, is there how important is the aspect of marriage and finding the right person and all of this? I'm not talking about in practical level, I'm talking about in a conceptual way. Okay? This is quite new for human reality. Some time ago, things were not like that. This is a constructed aspect of the mind. Okay? This is just one other example. Like, there have been societies in which the whole family structure was completely different. And for them, that was the most natural thing. Because this is also part of the constructed mind. So one step that I feel is very important is for us to start understanding what is my constructed mind and what is the spontaneous mind. The spontaneous mind are the aspects of the mind that are totally independent of culture, education, experiences that we live, okay, of knowledge. For example, we can go anywhere in the world. People get angry, jealous, envy, selfish. People feel love, compassion, wisdom. Wisdom is not a feeling. Wisdom is to be coherent with reality. These are things that are spontaneous. We can build them up. The important thing to understand is both the spontaneous and the constructed mind can be tuned, can be shaped. Okay? And they influence each other also. But the spontaneous part of our mind is that aspect which, independently of what we believe or what we don't believe, independently of where we are born, in which culture we live, and so on, they are there. And it's very interesting, for example, there are studies about the expressions of the face. And by seeing this, people have seen that in different parts of the world with total different cultures, people manifest the same emotions through the same expressions. That's why, actually, if a person that is trained in this can understand if a person is lying, if not lying, if a person is expressing love or contentment or insatisfaction or anger and so on. We are actually quite transparent. Okay? So what happens is that these are aspects which are spontaneous. The main objective in Buddhism is to transform the spontaneous mind, not the constructed one. Because the constructed mind, when we die, it's gone. Inside the idea that of reincarnation, what continues from life to life is the spontaneous mind, not the constructed one. You know, a baby comes with a spontaneous mind, but not with a constructed mind. When we look at small babies and then we follow them up as they grow, If we think about our brothers, sisters, or about one's own child or grandchildren and so on. Is a children born already with some sort of character that sure is shaped afterwards? But when you see like one brother and one sister, are they different since the moment of birth or not?
Different,
Yes. You see some children that since they are very small, like very small baby, they already have a strong character. Other babies, very soft and gentle. Some of them, since they are very small, they're already trying to understand everything. Other ones, maybe they don't really understand anything. And if we follow up after, it's actually, the adult is not that different from that small baby that was born, very often. Which is showing the spontaneous part of the mind. Okay? The good news is that we can shape our mind. It's possible to shape, to train the mind. Even the spontaneous mind, it takes longer than the constructed mind, but it's possible. Okay? So, is it clear the difference between these two aspects of the mind, the constructed mind and the spontaneous mind? Okay? Once again, it's very important and it's quite, liberating to see the aspects, the constructed aspects of our mind as being constructed. And it's also quite liberating to see the spontaneous aspects of our mind as being spontaneous. Why? Because most of the times, the spontaneous aspects of the mind we see as a result of the conditions in which we live. Why do I feel angry? Because this is happening, because that is happening. Why I have this emotion or that emotion? We feel very often as if we're simply a result of the world around us. But then if we really look, they are always there. You know, I always remember one friend of mine. She was unhappy one day and she came to talk to me. And she started complaining about her working partner with whom she had a business together. And then it was there probably because this person, he never recognized anything I do. And she had a strong sensation of not being recognized and not being respected and so on, not being understood. And then I knew her quite well. I knew her friend also. So I asked her, have you ever felt this any other moment in your life? Before? Forget about this very right moment. And forget about the context in which you are. The same inner sensation of not being respected, of not being understood, not being recognized, which somehow is the same thing. Have you ever felt the same thing before? Can you go back in your memory and remember other moments where the same feeling arose? And she answered me, my whole life. So was with my husband, so was with my friends, so was with my parents. Nobody never understood me. I was never recognized. Then I just asked her, what's the only thing in common that you see in all this? It's you. So the point is that, you know, like when we know someone after some long time, and the person, we're going to see the person again after 1 month or 2 weeks or 3 months, it doesn't matter. Do we have some sort of expectation of what the person is going to talk about? And what are the complaints that the person may do? We are quite simple. And we are quite repetitive. Because the point is that until we do not deal with our own inner conflicts, we will just create again and again external situations to try through which these conflicts are going to manifest. So this is all part of the spontaneous mind. The spontaneous mind manifests to us in a more clear and aware way through the different conditions that we live. And we are lucky when it manifests so that we can see it more clearly and we can do something about it. That's why in some Buddhist teachings it is said our enemies are actually our best friends. Why? Because when we have an objective in life to train the mind, to shape our mind, it's so important to see our own shadow. It's so important to see our own spontaneous mind. And normally it's when someone is treating us in a way that we may not like very much, and when conditions are not the best, then when our defilements, our anger, or jealousy, or I think that our, let's say, our inner poisons come out. So good. Why? Because then we can see it, then we can do something about it. It's not because I'm not feeling angry that I don't have anger, right? So what's the only way how I can really deal with my anger? First I need to see it. I need to know I do have anger. Otherwise I just live in this idealized idea I am perfect. And then when something happens, it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault, because if you did not say this, or if you didn't do that, I would not be angry. So it's not my fault, the anger is not coming freely from me. And what happens basically is the more the time passes, the more we make our own, the negative aspects, or we can call it habits also, of our spontaneous mind stronger and stronger and stronger. Because we are constantly shaping our mind. Both the spontaneous and the constructed, every moment, in this very right instant. The simple fact that we are talking about having a constructed and a spontaneous aspect of the mind, this is already changing our constructed mind. Okay? The way how we see things. So at every moment of our reality, of our experience, we are shaping our mind. The fact is that very often we shape the mind in a way not being aware. In which direction, in which way I'm shaping my mind. The more I get angry, the more used I get with being angry. So the more I get angry, the more I will get angry. This is one example. Okay. So, not only is possible to shape the mind, that would not be a very correct statement. The statement is we are always shaping the mind. The mind is always being shaped in a way or in another. By every place I go, by every person I meet, by every thought I have, by every emotion I manifest, I am shaping my mind. All the time. It's the same with the body. Every time I sit, I'm creating a habit. If I always sit like this, one day I start having problem in my back. But where is the problem coming from? From a long process. Not coming from that very right moment. So, similar to the body, we are always shaping. The same thing, body and mind, they are very similar actually in many aspects. Every time I eat, am I shaping my body? Every time I breathe, the movements I do, the way how I sleep, all of this is influencing the body. Nothing comes out of nothing like in an instant. It's a very gradual process. Okay? So that's why keeping healthy is not so easy, because it means having a fully healthy lifestyle. Because the body is being shaped all the time by everything we do. The same is with the mind. So what's the way to have a healthy mind? Is to live with a healthy lifestyle, mentally and physically. Because I cannot say, okay, for you to have a happy mind, a healthy mind, okay, do 2 times meditation a day, it will help for sure, but it's not enough. Because every word we say, every thought we have, every place we go, everything we do, we are shaping our mind as we shape our body, as we shape our life. Actually, every action we do, we could say every word we say, every action we do, every choice we make, every thought we have, determines our future and our present. It's extremely important. So there is not such a thing as, okay, I will do this to shape my mind. No. We are already doing it every day. There was one study done in England, which it's quite useless, but it's good they did it, because the result's quite obvious. The study was, people that stay many hours in violent video games. Does this influence the mind to be more violent?
No.
The result was yes.
Yes.
If I am always reacting with violence in the game, I pass 5 hours a day. Someone coming and then I am reacting. I'm doing that virtually. What happens that people after that, they have the more strong reactions. What's the influence? When something happens, they have the tendency to react more violently. Okay? I am not saying someone, because they play a lot of violent video games, they become a very violent person. I'm not saying that. But the fact is that the mind is influenced. One very small example. If I come to you today and start talking badly about Devadatta. Okay, Devadatta was a cousin of Buddha. For whatever reason, many reasons, but in the Buddhist teachings, when we need to say the name of someone, we say Devadatta. So let's say I come today here and I start talking bad about Devadatta. And I say, look, Devadatta is a terrible person, with such a bad character, never trust him, and here and there. I say many bad things about Devadatta. You never met Devadatta, you don't know who he is. Okay? Then after 20 years, you meet Devadatta for the first time. Is there any preconcept? Or not? For the 20 seconds of criticism that you listened 20 years back? Yes. We are fully influenced by it. So we are influenced by what we see, by what we listen, by the places where we go, by everything that we experience. Okay? So what I want to say is that we are always shaping our mind at every moment of our life. So one of the important things for me is for us to shape our mind in a conscious way. In order to do that well, it's important to know how our mind is functioning also. Okay? So I would like briefly to talk about a little bit some basic functions of the mind also. So we have seen the gross aspect of the mind and the subtle aspect. And not, sorry, the gross, subtle, very subtle, but we have seen mostly the constructed aspect of the mind and the spontaneous aspect of the mind. Okay? And I leave for each one of you to go in on this quest of finding the gross, the constructed mind and understanding how it is built and so on. And all the time, whenever we may go and say something, this is like this, just ask yourself, this perception I have, where is it coming from? Spontaneous mind or constructed mind? And then, instead of saying this is like this, we should say this is how I see it. Because this is just the way how I see it through my own constructed mind. Okay? One other thing is that in Buddhist teachings, there is a whole part of learning how the mind functions and so on. And we call it lorik, the type of teachings. And within it, there is one part which calls the primary mind and the mental factors. Okay, that's the name how it's translated normally. Tibetan is called Semdan Semchung, Sosem and Dan Semchung. Basically, it's the fact that we have thoughts. Every thought, every part of our mind, we have normally we call the sense consciousness, which is the different parts of the mind perceiving the different senses. So we have the eye sense consciousness, the ear sense consciousness, the taste sense consciousness, the touch sense consciousness, and then we have the mind sense consciousness also, which perceives the memories, the ideas, and so on. Okay? Every one of these primary consciousness is built up with many different, let's call it microminds, okay? Like small little aspects of the mind that build up one thought. Okay? And understanding this better is like taking one thought and opening it into parts. When we start dividing the thought, it helps us to understand where can we change something. So normally there are described 51 mental factors. Not every thought have all the 51, that's not possible. Maybe they are divided into 6 categories, which are the 5 omnipresent mental factors, the 5 determining mental factors, the 11 positive mental factors, the 6 root unwholesome, or the 6 root mental factors that generate suffering, like negative mental factors, the 20 secondary negative mental factors, and the 4 mental factors that change position. They are not good or bad. They can change depending who they go with. Okay. We're not going through now the 51 mental factors. Okay. But I would like to introduce you to the first 5. Very briefly. It's something that we normally studied quite long. I just like to make an introduction to it. Okay. So they're called omnipresent because they're present on every thought. Every moment in our mind we have these 5 mental factors, which they are sensation, or feeling is a better word in English. We have feeling, discrimination, or discernment, maybe a better translation, feeling, discernment, tsorwa dushe. Then we have intention, attention, and contact. Okay, now let's see what we mean by these words. Okay, let's try to understand it. The first one is feeling. Feeling is the aspect of the mind through which we experience reality. There are 3 types of feeling: positive, negative, and neutral. A positive feeling is all the feelings that we have, that we want them to continue, and whenever it ends, we want it to come back again. That's a positive feeling. Negative feeling are all the feelings we have, we want it to end as soon as possible, and whenever it ends, we don't want it to come back again. That's a negative feeling. Okay? And we're not talking about the object through which we experience the feeling, it's the inner sensation. And then we have the neutral feeling, which is basically feelings that we have and we don't care if it continues or not. Okay? It's more difficult to understand because they're neutral, so we are not so much aware of it. So this is the so-called feeling. Okay? Feeling is very important because it's the basis for judgment. When we have an experience, when we meet a person, when we go to a place, when we experience anything, what is the basis for us to say if it was good or bad? Our feeling. If we had a good feeling, a good sensation, it was good. It may have been ugly, it may have been not nice, the image, or this or that, but if we felt good, it was good. It may have been the most beautiful thing, but if I felt bad, it was bad. Okay? So feeling is one of the most important aspects of our mind, because it's the aspect of the mind that determines if it's good or bad, if we want or if we don't want. Okay? And it's through feeling that we judge everything. Okay? And feeling is also very important because, and the second mental factor we will go after, which is discernment also, both of them are very important, because these are the 2 main reasons why people go into conflict. The first main reason why people enter into conflict is because of feeling. Because when we have a positive feeling, what happens? We connect it with something, with an object. I drink water. I have a nice feeling. I like it. I want more. So what type of reaction I have towards the water? Attraction. 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 What happens towards attraction? Attraction brings attachment. I don't want to lose my water. Can I do anything negative? Can I become violent in order to get my objects of desire? If we look around us in society, most of the violences that happen, they are based on desire. Desire for feeling. for the feeling of pleasure, for the feeling of happiness. That's what people mostly want. Why people go out for pleasures of the body, why people want power, why people want money, why all of us. And why some people do crazy things for this. It's because truly what we want is what? The sensation, the feeling of pleasure. Okay? It's actually something so simple behind. But it determines so many things. So the first aspect of our mind, there is no thought, no moment of experience in which there is no feeling. Or it's good, or it's bad, or it's neutral. Okay? Someone may say, oh, neutral feeling is no feeling. No, it's also one type of feeling. Okay? Second point. We have what is called discernment. The second mental factor that is always present is discernment, dushe in Tibetan. I prefer to call it discernment, but some people also translate it as discrimination. Discernment is the aspect of the mind that puts the parts together of the object and says, this is this, that is that. It's the one that looks and says, oh, this is a glass of water. That's discernment. Colors appear to my eye. Shapes and colors appear to my eyesight. Because when I look at the object, what is appearing to my eyes? A glass full of water or shapes and colors? What appears to the eyesight? When we look at a painting, what appears to our eyes? Shapes and colors, or there is a specific form? Do I know what the painter really meant?
Shapes
It's actually shapes and colors. It's like one time a little girl in the center in Milan. I was giving talk. Normally schools come also sometimes to the center. And then a little girl, she was about 6, I think. Then behind me there was a big image, painted image of Buddha standing up. Then she looked at this image of Buddha and she asked me, sorry, who is that lady with a blue helmet? Being very sincere, I have no idea why Buddha is depicted with this hair that looks like a blue helmet. But, and the way how Buddha is dressed in our culture, is it a dress for a man or a woman? More for a woman, right? So what happened is that, was she wrong? No. That's her, based on what? Her own constructed mind. That's her view. Okay, because what appears to our eyes is nothing more, nothing less than colors and shapes. So when I look at this object, what is appearing to my mind? To my eyes? Colors and shapes. What do I do to it? I will discern it. I will say, oh, look, this is a glass of water. I will give a name to it. And also, I will be able to make a difference between one object and another. I can look and I say, oh, there is a full glass, there is an empty glass. I can discern one thing from the other. Okay? So at every moment, we are always discerning things. We're always naming things, labeling things. This is this, that is that. That's the aspect of the mind called discernment. Okay? Very important one also. Most of the conflicts arise because of attachment to sensation, feeling, and to discernment. When people are well enough with their senses, which means when everybody have enough to eat, when everybody have a nice house to live, when everybody are physically, materially well, so basically most of the feelings are fine, in this way, then what do they start discussing and fighting about? Ideas. I am right, you are wrong. This is discernment. I think. And then we start to, can we have very strong discussions because of ideas? We have none, right? People can even kill themselves because of it. Okay? This is attachment to discernment. My discernment is right. Your discernment is wrong. So most of the conflicts, they are born from attachment to feeling and attachment to discernment. Anyhow, the fact is that we always have feelings and discernment every moment of our lives. Okay? Third mental factor. is called intention. Sorwa dushe sempa. It's called sempa in Tibetan. Sempa, intention, is the aspect of the mind that directs us towards an object. An object means a person, a situation, an object, whatever it may be. Okay? Whenever we do something, whenever we say a word, or we act physically, or we do anything, we make any choice, there is something that is the basis of our motivation, our intention. Why am I doing that? Okay? There is something that moves us towards the object. Okay? This is called intention. Then once we choose the direction, with some sort of, we grasp at the object, saying, that's how I want to get there. That's called attention. Okay? Then we will go back to the 5 again. So we have sensation, feeling, discernment, intention. Intention is the basis of every action. Many of you have heard the word karma, no? When we go to describe what karma is intention, basically. The basis of every action finds itself in the intention that we have when we act. Okay, that's why we cannot hide ourselves from karma, because it's like, we cannot hide ourselves from our intention. Maybe we can hide from other people our intention, but truly not from ourselves. Okay? So intention is the basis of every action. Then the so-called attention is when we focus on the object and say, that's what I want, that's where I want to go, that's what I'm going to do. We grasp at something. And the last mental factor, but somehow the first of the 5, is called contact. Contact is the aspect of the mind that puts together the experience of external reality. Contact is the union of object of perception or sensory object, sense power, and sense consciousness. For example, there is a form of the glass, okay, which what appears to my eyesight is not a glass, it's the form of the glass. Okay? So the form of the glass appears to my eyesight. Then there is the actual eyesight, and then there is the eye consciousness. Okay? There is the vibrations in the air, the sound. Then there is my ear sense consciousness, which is the actual physical sense, the ear. And then there is the ear consciousness. The ear sense, and then there is the ear consciousness. Okay? Like this is for our 5 senses. So contact is, if we put the 5 aspects of the mind, of the 5 mental factors, in a sort of an order, to make it more easy to understand, we start with contact. The first thing that happens is that we enter in contact with something or someone by seeing, by listening, by touching, by smelling, by thinking. The 6th object, we have sound, form, smell, taste, touch, and then we have mental images, ideas, memories, okay? So we enter in contact with one of the mental objects, one of the objects of our 6 senses. And by that what happens is that it depends on our senses. Once the 2 get together, we need also the sense consciousness. It's like when we are sleeping. If we are in deep sleep, even though our senses are there, are we aware of the senses? Not really. Why? Because the sense consciousness at that time is not awake. It's not aware. Okay? So what happened basically is that we need the 3 together. And there is something very interesting about this contact. By looking how that we perceive reality through contact, we are not able to perceive reality in a different way. How do we perceive reality? Objects of the senses, our own senses, and the sense consciousness. Okay? So we have the 6 senses. 5 senses plus the mind. We see, by only looking at this mental factor, we can understand how much reality is actually subjective and not objective. For instance, this object we take today, we have the glass as an object. So we take, for instance, this object. Okay, we call it a glass of water. Can we all see it? Yes. Are we seeing the same glass? Without entering into philosophy, if I ask you, is it the same glass or not? What's the answer?
Yes.
Yes, we are seeing the same glass. Now let's try to analyze it. Okay? And we will see the contact. What's the contact that we have here? There is the form of the glass that appears to our eyesight. The form that appears to me, is it the same form that appears to all of you? No. I am more near, it looks bigger. You are more far, it looks smaller. In other words, the light that reflects into my eye and the light that reflects into the eye of each one of you is the same, or is it different? It's different. Is it similar? Yes. By definition, whatever is similar is different. Okay? There is a saying in Tibetan which says, Jana ngomai. If it's similar, by definition, it's different. Okay? So, the form that appears to my eyesight and the form that appears to the eyesight of each one of you, is it the same or is it different? Different. Different positions and so on. Okay? Now, the eyesight, is it the same or is it different? My eye and your eye, is it the same? If I take out my glasses, I can tell you things already start to change. Okay? So what happened basically is that our eyesights are different, right? They are similar because we are all human beings, but because they are similar, they are different. Okay? Our eyesight consciousness, is it the same or is it different? Is it different? So the question is very simple. Are we seeing the same thing? Are we experiencing the same object? No. We are not even talking about discernment. Huh? Before reaching discernment, before reaching the aspect, how do we see the glass, if we like it, if we don't like it, if we call it a glass, if we call it a vase, or whatever name we give to it, before reaching that part, direct, on the sense power, on our senses, reality is already different. Okay? So this is the so-called contact. One of the beautiful things of it is then when we understand the simple mental factor called contact, and we understand that everything that I perceive through my senses is different from what you perceive through your senses, I start respecting more the difference between each one of us. And I start to be less attached to my way of seeing. And I stop saying, this is this. I start to say, this is what I see. This is how I perceive, instead of saying, this is how things are. Okay? So, first thing, we have contact. Once we have contact, what is the direct result of contact? Feeling. In the moment I enter in contact with any object of any one of my senses, right away I have feeling. And what are the feelings? Positive, negative, or neutral. Together with that, what do I have? Discernment. I will say, for example, I see the flowers. Why do we put flowers here?
It's nice. It's beautiful.
To recognize feeling. Because we think in our constructed idea, flowers are nice.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not my case, okay? I'm very happy with the flower. But imagine just if I had a worldview in which I am very sad with any act of violence towards nature, and I see cutting a flower an act of violence towards nature. I look at a flower and I already start judging the people around here that they cut out flowers. What is this? Okay? So what happened? We have the direct, what can happen is that the first eye contact brings a neutral feeling. Then because of the discernment, I can have a negative feeling. Okay? Or a positive feeling. I just remember right now at the flowers, a friend of ours in Brazil, she is a school teacher. and she teaches in a school in the outskirts of São Paulo. Very poor area, very violent also. So one day they had a day where all the parents came to the school and so on, and she wanted to make one room as an honor to the mothers. So she spent quite a lot of money. She doesn't have much money, but she spent a lot of money to buy many flowers. And she made a room full of flowers. Because in the outskirts of the city, you don't see much flowers. So she made a room full of flowers in order for them, dedicated for the mothers, in order for the mothers to go in and have this nice sensation of being in the middle of so many flowers. Nobody went into the room. People would pass by and would not enter the room. And then she was a little bit upset, and she said, what did I do wrong? What's the problem with that? So she went and she asked people, why people are not entering into the room that are made full of flowers with so much love, with so much care? She said, no. We here, talking about the outskirts of the city, we only see flowers in funerals. So a room full of flowers remember us of death. I have a friend that she had strong traumas regarding funerals, and she cannot dare to have the smell of flowers because she remembered the moment and the suffering. She always goes back to the suffering on when these people died whenever she feels the smell of flowers, because she connected both. Okay? So what happens is that first thing we have is the contact. But after the contact, we have one first sensation, but together with that we have the discernment. And the discernment may be positive, negative. Whenever we give a name and we say this is a flower, it comes back with a whole background of experiences, of emotions, and so on and so on. Maybe at some point in my life somebody gave me a yellow rose and it was such a wonderful moment, so when I see a yellow rose somehow I remember that it gave me so much joy. Maybe not, maybe a different thing. Maybe it remembered me a difficult moment, and this is not conscious. When I say yellow rose, and I give that discernment, together with it comes a whole bunch of experiences that I bring together with me. And I judge reality through that. Okay? So contact brings sensation, together with that it comes discernment. This is this, that is that. Out of sensation and discernment, what happened? We have one thing which in Tibetan is called sepa. In this case, which sepa is translated as a desire, but in Italian it's called Brahma. Brahma is like a more spontaneous type of desire. It's something that is not intellectual, and basically is the strong instinct to avoid suffering and to gain happiness. It's a strong instinct that we have. It's a very, very strong force that we have inside all of us. That is basically what makes us to do everything we do. It's a deep, strong force that is, I want to be happy, I don't want to suffer. The first thing we start talking today. And it's a force that we have in front of us. Like, whenever we are into a situation that we see it as a cause of suffering, what is our reaction? Attraction, aversion, or indifference? Aversion. We want to make distance from that, because if that is making me suffer. If it's something that I feel happy, I feel good about it, attraction. Okay? So after contact, feeling, discernment, or we can even, to make it more simple, we can say contact, discernment, feeling. If the feeling is of pleasure, attraction. If the feeling is of suffering, aversion. Okay? If the feeling is neutral, neutral. So, this is where it comes the intention. The intention to gain, the intention to take away. Okay? This is where it comes this first reaction that we have. And then from that it comes the next mental factor, which is attention, which is basically what do I do in order to get, or what do I do in order to put away. And then we choose one direction and we grasp at it. Okay? Then we say something, we make a choice, we do something about it. So, what is on the basis of our choices, of our actions, sensation, feeling, and discernment? Okay? One important thing. Can we change our contact? Can we choose the contact that we have? Yes and no. In a sense, can I choose where to go?
Yeah.
Yes. Up to a certain point, yes. Can I choose which people to meet? Up to a certain point, yes. Can I choose if I watch a movie or if I don't watch the movie? Or which movie to watch, or which paper to read, or which music to listen, and so on? Yes. So I can choose what contact I want or not. And remember one thing. Everything that comes to our mind influences our mind. There is one thing for me was everything that we see influences the mind. Everything that we touch, we listen, and so on. For me, it was very clear the example of the, I don't know how to say in English, subliminal message. Subliminal message. Subliminal message is basically what I want to say is like, in the beginning of cinema and television, they discovered that if you take 1 second in cinema are 24 frames. And if you write a message or if you put an image in 1 frame and then you don't put it like for 7 frames and then you put it again and then you don't put for 7 frames, then you put the message again and you do it like this, the eye cannot see. But we perceive the message. Okay? Stanley Kubrick used to do this in his movies, for example. And Coca-Cola used to do this in the beginning of publicity. And now it's prohibited, generally speaking, to use this. But it's quite a mean technique. Because you are able to give information without saying you are giving this information, more than giving to induce information. Okay? The point is that when people would see something without knowing they're seeing, in the end of the movie, they would have that idea and they didn't know where it was coming from. Or that of that emotion, and they didn't know where it was coming from. No, like there is in one of the movies of Kubrick, an image of a man sitting on an electric chair, and the image itself is not so violent, but people have a very strong sensation of fear and anxiety by looking at that image, which is actually more strong than what your eyes are seeing. So it gives a very strong impact on people because you experience something stronger than what you are seeing. Basically what he did is that where there is the image of the man, he put the image of a skeleton, and the image of the skeleton, a dead person, and that the image is there but you don't know that it's there. So he was playing with this, okay? But what I want to say is that if something that I cannot even see influences my mind, what about what I am fully seeing? Sure, it influences the mind. Okay? So contact is important. We need to choose what to see, what not to see, what to listen, what not to listen. Everything that we listen, everything that we say, everything that we see, everything that we touch, everywhere that we go, everything that we experience influences ourselves. It's shaping our mind. It's shaping ourselves. Okay? So we can make some choices on this level. But can we make the choice in the level of feeling? Not so much. When we enter in contact with something, the feeling is coming as a result. In discernment, can we have some choices and the freedom when it comes to discernment? Yes, we can actually rediscern. No? We see something and then we ask, okay, is it really like this that I want to relate to that object? Is there any other possibility? It's similar to the fact of knowing that a constructed mind is constructed. It's knowing that a view is a view. It's knowing that when I look to this object, I call it flowers because that's the name that I'm giving, that's the functions and characteristics that I'm attributing to it, but necessarily doesn't need to be like that. Okay. So once we know this, we can choose which type of discernment I want to apply. One time I was talking to a friend of mine, And he was in a difficult situation in his life, and I was trying to explain him a different way of seeing the same reality. And I was looking and I was saying, please look, things don't need to be how you see them. And I was explaining my own point of view. But his main point was, but the way how I see, is it wrong? No. Both ways, the way how you see and the way how I see, both of them are right. Then I say, why do I need to change view then? Because it's better for you. Because it helps you to generate more positive emotions, good feelings, and not generating negative emotions. What's the only difference between an object of anger and an object of compassion? The way how we see it. The same person doing the same action. I can see, oh, you're terrible, and I can add many bad words. And I can say, look at you, I may generate aversion towards you. Or I can see you doing the same thing, and I can say, I'm so sorry that you act out of so much ignorance. How can I help you to get out of that ignorance? So you stop harming yourself and others. It's compassion. In front of the same object. What makes the difference? What is better for me, to feel anger or to feel compassion? What makes the difference? The attitude I have. Or the only difference between an object of miserliness and an object of generosity. Someone comes and asks me something. I can say, I don't give. Or I can say, here it is, I share what I have. The object is the same. What changes is the way how I put myself. Okay? So we can make choice, and the important thing is not what is the right and wrong. There are many right ways of seeing reality. The point is which way of relating to reality it's better for me. Makes me puts me into a positive interdependence. Let's put it in this way. Okay? But then we have discernment where we can make choices. But then there is intention. And intention is where we can really make the main difference. The question is, there is something that harms me. What can I do about it? When I am in front of an object to which I am suffering, if I am aware that that object is just a mirror that is reflecting my own defilements, I don't need to go against him or her or against the situation. I can maybe make some distance, but without generating any aversion towards the person and towards the situation and so on, because I know that it's coming from myself. The very important thing is for us not to react violently towards the difficult situations of life. This is very important. And here we have a key of choice. And most of all, in the moment that we choose how to react, we are choosing how to train, how to shape our own mind and our own habits, because we are made out of habits. Our mind is made out of habits. The process of shaping the mind in Buddhism is made out of 3 parts, which is called listening, comprehending, and meditating. First thing, understand. That's listening. Second thing, comprehend. Make that knowledge to be your own knowledge, not anymore the repetition of someone else. Okay? Why is it like this? Because I believe it, because I experienced it, because I understood it. Not because someone said. Third point, get familiarized with it. So it's not anymore something conceptual, but it's something spontaneous, deep within yourself. This is how we can shape our mind. For example, is it enough to know that we shouldn't get angry in order for anger to go away? If we go and we understand very clear, oh, it's not good to be angry. Does anybody here see anger as something good? Maybe if you see, you don't want to say because you may feel not so comfortable if nobody else thinks like that. But the fact is that even children, when you ask the children, I always make this question, not always, but most of the time to children when I sit at school and I talk to school kids, very small or teenage, doesn't matter. Do you get angry? All of them say yes. Is it good or bad? How do you feel when you are angry? All of them say bad. Do you feel good? No. Why do we still get angry? And many of them, they look at us and say, I don't know. It looks so stupid actually. Like if we just look at anger, what is anger? Anger is an attitude in which we have a contact, and the object through which we get into contact, we have a feeling of suffering. And we don't like suffering. So what's the reaction? I want to get away of this feeling of suffering. But we connect our feeling with the contact, so with the object. We forget that we have our own sense power, that we have our own consciousness, that have a big influence, and our own discernment that has a big influence in reality. We just connect with the object. So I have contact with an object, something that I see, something that I listen, something that I touch, situation that I experience. And then what happened? I have a feeling of suffering. I don't want to suffer. So I have an intention to get away of that suffering. And my reaction is aversion, distance, and then I can get aggressive. I can generate violence. And anger is, I want to destroy what makes me suffer. I want to put aside what is making me suffer. But by anger, are we able to eliminate the object of suffering? By getting angry, do we solve any problem? Not really. Do we suffer more when we get angry?
Yeah.
So for me, when someone gets really angry, it's like putting a nice sign, holding a big sign and saying to the world, look how ignorant I am. In order not to suffer, I suffer even more. Because that's what we do, right? We don't want to suffer, that's why we get angry. And what's the result? We suffer even more. So, once we understand how stupid it is to get angry, and we get to the final conclusion, there is no reason whatsoever in the world for me to get angry. There's no reason. Can anyone try to give me one reason to get angry? I couldn't find it. There's no reason. Oh, this is not right. Then okay, I understand that you may see it as not right. I also may see it as not right, but that's not a reason to be angry. Why? Because through anger you are not going to make it right. Through anger we are not going to change people's attitude or to change the world. We just get more frustrated ourselves and we suffer more. And we accumulate tension and we end up sick. Okay? So basically there is no reason. But once we understand that there is no reason to get angry, it's not enough. It's one first step. Then we need to start to induce ourselves into experiences of being in front of an object of anger and not reacting with anger. Because our mind works out of experiences and not out of understanding. We give a lot of importance to understanding, but that's just a very, very, very small part of our life. And not so important, really. Knowledge, I love knowledge. I love learning and studying, and I like it very much. Huh? But the more time passes, the more I see how small it is. How useless sometimes. Whenever we are in front of a situation and we react, we do not react based on knowledge. We react based on experience. So the process within Buddhism is, I need to induce myself in an artificial way to positive experiences so that after I can repeat them in a natural way. Okay? So I will induce myself to be in front of an object that normally I will react with anger. And I would not react with aggression, with anger, because I am aware, I am careful at that moment. So I will induce myself to an experience of patience, which is to be in front of an object of anger and not to react with violence, with aggression. Is it easy? No. But this is to meditate on patience. I need to induce myself into that state. Do we have all a mind that we have full of love and compassion towards all sentient beings? No. So what we need to do, if we want to generate that mind, we need to induce ourselves to open our hearts, to be more generous, to relate to reality in a more coherent way. Because only by inducing ourselves to an experience, not to an understanding, because we already have the understanding before. By inducing ourselves to the experience, slowly, when we get to the actual situation after, we remember the past experience, and then we can repeat it more easily. The more we have one experience, the easier it is to have that again and again and again. Okay? This is the process that in Buddhism is called meditation. Meditation is not necessarily to sit down in silence. Meditation is very much connected into familiarizing, training ourselves. And the way of shaping our mind in a conscious way is we need to choose, where do I want my mind to be? How do I want to be? That's why it's so important actually to have a mental image, to have an idea of what is a healthy mind. That's what I want. For me, a healthy mind has different aspects. For example, a healthy mind is a mind that do not react in front of situations. A healthy mind is a mind that is not afraid of others and is not victimizing itself. It's a mind that is aware, is a person that is fully aware of one's own responsibilities and relates to the reality. The main aspect of a healthy mind relates to reality in a coherent way with what reality is. That's the main aspect of a healthy mind. A healthy mind is open, it's not closed. It's aware of its own limits. So once I know what I want, then I need to put effort in that way. That's why one thing I think is a good thing to do, like a sort of advice, make your own wish list. I don't know if you ever, people here in Holland, you have the habit of writing down wish lists like, okay, what do I want to get, or I don't know, when people get married and they have a list of presents they want to get, or whatever. Nowadays, a sort of wish list, okay? I think Americans like very much doing the wish lists and this, putting things into lists. Anyhow, let's say we make a wish list, okay? A mind wish list. What do I want for my mind? Oh, I want to be more patient. Patience. Oh, what do I want? Oh, I want to have an open mind. That I'm able to respect others more. I put there. What do I want? I want more stability. I don't want anymore for my mind to be just like a sort of a leaf or a paper in the middle of the wind going up and down according to the situations that happen. I prefer to be like a strong tree that moves a little bit but never, it fills the air but is not going away from its own place. I like to feel what is happening around of me. I need to understand what happens, but I'm not changing my position so easily. No. We put what do we want to be? Where do we want to go mentally? Where? And based on that, then we need to work hard for it. How do we work hard? By understanding, comprehending, and meditating. Meditating means inducing ourselves to it. Okay? Because our mind is flexible. One master from Tibet, his name was Geshe Chekawa from the 11th century. He wrote, the mind is full of defects, but it has one great quality. Whatever you teach, it follows. So, let's teach the right things. Let's shape it in the right way. And how do we do that? By every word we say, by every thought we have, by every choice we make, every day. But some people tell me, oh, it's the most important thing is to be natural. I think it's much better to be an artificial altruistic than to be a natural selfish person. It's much better to be artificially patient than naturally angry. Okay? Is it better to be naturally patient? Sure, much better. But being natural is not an excuse for our anger and for everything else. So, if I act in a way, even though it may be artificial, which means it needs an extra effort of awareness, that's how gradually I would also train myself so that that may become natural and spontaneous, which is my true objective. Okay? So, within the aspects of the mind, one of the most important aspects is our mind is malleable. It's shapeable. We can shape it. Okay? And we are always shaping it, but we need to do it within our own awareness. In a way, like we need to choose the direction how we want to shape the mind. And once we shape the mind correctly, then everything is fine. Just make one example. One of my teachers, Gel Hakpala, I asked him one time, when was the best period of your life after you left Tibet? In 59. He said, oh, were the first 10 years. I said, what? The first 10 years, they were living, all the monks that came out of Tibet, they were living in the north of India in a place called Buxa, which was the jail where Mahatma Gandhi was put by the English, was a British jail. In the middle of the forest in the north of India. They had almost nothing to eat. They only had old rice full of excrements from animals and dead insects inside and so on. 80% of the monks had tuberculosis. They had no place to sleep, no cushion, no beds, no blankets. It was just lay down wherever and take out your belt. And I asked him, how come they were the best years? He said, oh, basically because we only had two things to think about. Dharma, we had our teachers with us, our gurus. So we were passing our time meditating, praying, debating on philosophy, and talking about Tibetan politics. These were the only two things that we would talk about. What happened is that if we fill our mind with objects that we are, let's say, interested in, and if our mind is satisfied, the rest doesn't matter that much. When the mind is not satisfied, whatever we have is not enough. It doesn't matter if we have everything for the body, it's never enough. That's one of the reasons. Always learn something new. Keep your mind busy with good things. Otherwise, you will fill it up with useless stuff. That's what happens. If we do not fill our mind with good things, it will fill itself with useless things. The life of other people, what they do, what they don't do, what happened here, what happened there, and this and that, blah, 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 all the gossiping we know, and all the worries that we don't need to have. That's why it's important also to learn new things. One of the important things to keep the mind healthy is never stop learning. Always have new things, new positive things, because the more things we learn, the more space we have, and the more we are filled up with positive things. Otherwise, what happens is that when we stop learning, we have no new things, and then we just start filling ourselves with little problems and judgments and here and there, and we get a little bit stuck in our own views, and we suffer more, basically. Okay. So, just one point to conclude, which I said I would say, but we finally were talking about many other things and this never came out. Is the relation between body and mind. Very, very briefly. One Buddhist text says, body and mind always goes together. For example, when you feel sad, tears come out of your eyes. If there was no relation between body and mind, why would tears come out of the eyes when we feel sadness? No reason. The fact is that, depending on what we eat, depending on how we sleep, depending on the actual hormone cycles of our body, does it influence the mind or not? Sure. So what is important? Also to understand the influences of the mind. No? This just remembers me one friend. She's a lawyer, very strong character in Brazil. And she used to tell me that when she was in her premenstrual period, she would get more nervous than what she is normally, and she would get like a little bit aggressive also. So her boss was an old Japanese guy. And whenever he saw that she was a little bit over the edges, he would just bring and put one chocolate in her table. And then she would understand, oh, I'm going a little bit beyond the edges. Just by having the little chocolate on the table. And what happened is that as she used to understand her own inner cycle and the influence of her body, she was more careful not to have certain reactions. Okay? So we need to understand the influences that the body has to the mind. And by that, we can be more careful. Because the problem is that when there is an influence, that maybe we don't feel so well, or we feel a little bit sad, or something inside. And it's an influence also coming from the body and from the environment and so on. And then what happened? We do not understand this interdependence that is there, and we try to blame someone and something for it. So just one advice. Whenever we feel sad, whenever we feel some emotion that is not really the best one inside of us, no hurry to blame anyone or anything for it. Wait a little bit. Look at yourself. Breathe in and out a few times. Look at the situation. Because otherwise what can happen is you blame someone and you start fighting with that person or that situation, and then after that feeling is gone, but now you have the problem of the fight that you started. So wait before reacting. We need to try to act and not to react. Okay? So the influence between body and mind is very strong. We need to be aware of that also. And so that we need to respect and learn how to use it into our own purpose. Okay? And we cannot go against it. Okay? Like the hormones is something that have an influence to the mind. One, if you like or if you don't like it. According to Tibetan Buddhism, the body is like the horse, and the mind is like the horse rider. The horse rider has a problem with his legs, he cannot walk, he's disabled, and the horse is blind. No. So the horse can only go where the horse rider chooses with awareness, because the horse is blind. And the horse rider can only go where the horse is able to go. So who is giving the direction to the body? The mind. But the mind cannot go where the body cannot go. So the two things need to go together. This happens on a gross and a subtle and a very subtle level. Okay? So that's why it's also important to take care of our health. But also the mind have a big influence in the body. And I just want to make one very, very short example, then we conclude for today. We have two effects, the placebo effect. When we take something, I believe this is medicine, it's really good for me. It helps to cure me. Okay, I have many doctors here. You know better than me. Placebo effects work or don't work? It works. And what about the nocebo effect?
Works also. Yeah.
Nocebo effect is the opposite one. I believe it harms me, and then what happened? It harms me. So just one small bracket. This is my own personal point of view, okay? Which means it can be most probably is wrong, but it's the following. Nowadays we have a lot of care for the health. Can eat this, cannot eat that, this is good, that is bad, and so on. I fully agree. I grew up in a very natural style family and never ate white sugar when I was a kid, and we can go on, okay? And I really think it's better. But when we start having too many worries, this is harmful, that is harmful, that is harmful, that is harmful, that is harmful, there is also a nocebo effect there. So remember that the mind and the body are influenced by our choices and our beliefs also. Okay? When I really truly believe in something, it influences the body, and vice versa. And the body also influences the mind. So basically it's just we need to be careful in our way of living and trying to create the best balance as we can. Remember that there is no such a thing as instant enlightenment. It's just like step by step, day by day, thought by thought, word by word, choice by choice, one day after the other. That's how things change. Okay? So we'll make one just one prayer for dedication that I like to do in order to thank very much everyone. Okay? And I like to make one request. Anything that we said here today that you may think that is of benefit, please put an effort to put it into practice. Okay? Do not keep it only in the intellectual world of ideas, and we need to really bring it to action. Okay? So I just make a short prayer of dedication in Tibetan. Jetsun lame kutse rapten chi namkar tille chochur gepadam losan tempe drume sasungi drove munse tatu ne gyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshi nilsen taktu delekpe koncho sungi chingilo Koncho sumgi modrupso, koncho sumgi trashisho. Thank you very much. It is, as I said, a great pleasure, and I really hope may it be of some use for everyone.